Good evening. My name is John Burkhardt. I'm with the Moorestown Lions Club in Moorestown, New Jersey. Past president, the years 2005 to 2007, for those of you who may not know me. Today I'm here with Ed Winkler, who is our treasurer and charter member of the Moorestown Lions Club. Ed is a man who I consider a friend and an inspiration. He has graciously invited us into his home this evening so that we may briefly record an oral history of the club. Of course, this is Ed's perspective, but since he has been a member for so long, has been involved with most of the projects, all the politics, all the fundraisers, he's seen it all, done it all, experienced it all, we felt like this is probably a pretty good place to start. Ed has worked with countless individuals through the years, including some of our venerable current members, such as Joe Perla and Nick de Blasio. He has been involved, like I said, with all the projects, most of the fundraisers. You could probably also count on your hand the number of meetings Ed has missed through the years. But most of all, Ed Winkler is a dedicated leader of a club that helps others. Others that find themselves afflicted with blindness or sight impairment. Ed has done it year in and year out with no reluctance to participate. He likes to roll up his sleeves and get the job done. And he has a spirit that inspires me and I think inspires everybody. So it is my great pleasure and honor to introduce Mr. Ed Winkler. Ed, thank you for joining us tonight.
Sure.
Let me just start by cutting right to the chase. First of all, you ready for your big moment?
I'm ready.
Okay. Ed, thank you for joining us this evening. It's my pleasure and honor to have this interview with you. Thank you for joining us.
Sure.
Great. Through the years, whenever we've had new prospective members, usually has befallen on Ed to describe a little bit of the history of the Lions. And of course, many of us who've been at those meetings have heard this account of the origins of the Lions, but I think it's vital that future generations and future Lions members who aren't club members today, who see this tape, get that perspective from Ed, from his own words. So if you don't mind, could you just give us a brief origin history of the Moorestown Lions, where it started, how it started, and what got it going?
Okay, we first organized in April of 1948. There seemed to be a need in the town to provide an outlet for people who were not available in the daytime hours to attend Rotary or the Wise Men's Club. And we thought an evening membership club would be very worthwhile. The inspiration really came from a transfer member from Runnymede Club named Bert Hauser, who contacted Jim Conroy, as some people may remember, the owner of the Conroy drugstore on Main Street at that time. And they diligently started to recruit people who thought they would be interested in participating in a Lions Club. Within a matter of, I'm going to say, probably less than 2 months, they had contacted more than 50 or 60 people, and we chartered on April 28th of 1948 with 31 of those people. Today, I am the last of the original 31 charter members that is around. From that point on, the club started to grow. It was done through diligent effort on the part of a lot of members. We grew very rapidly up to 72 members in a matter of 2 years. After that, it was just progression of new members dropping out, and some coming and staying, but we did a lot of great things in those days.
That's terrific. Now, I'm just, in these meetings when we've had discussions about the origin of the Moorestown Lions, we've also often spoken about the origins of Lions International. Could you kind of give a brief refresher on how the original organization formed?
Yeah, in 1917 in the city of Chicago, Melvin Jones was contacted by some members of the business community there to get together to discuss needs for advertising amongst the businesses and certain things to do. They were really looking for a reason to be involved, and they were approached by Helen Keller, who I'm sure most everyone knows was blind, and she made a plea to that group to sponsor activities strictly for the blind, and that became the key issue of Lions from that point. from 1917 on through probably 1930s, the clubs were just confined to the Chicago area. After that, it started to expand across the country into Canada, and as we know it today, an international organization that's in hundreds of countries on every continent in the world.
Now, obviously I'm asking you to go back to 1948, but did you have a mentor or somebody that you would have considered a person who inspired you to get involved with the Lions?
Not really. I didn't know anyone who had ever been in Lions Club. It was a new idea to me, but it was appealing because immediately we got involved in a local project, which happened to turn out to be Memorial Field, as we know it, down on South Church Street. I think that was the one key issue that brought everyone together in Moorestown to want to be a part of this group. We were doing something for the people. The Veterans Organization were concerned about it because they were looking for a memorial spot. That's how the name became part of the activity. And we started our fundraisers almost immediately to provide, and we did provide, about 25% of the funds to build that field.
Now, just curious, because we always seem to have an issue in our current club about where we meet and the cost and all that. Where did you guys originally start meeting, and what did it cost for a meal?
We met at the Moorestown Community House, along with Rotary and Wiseman also met there. Our date was, the day of the week was kind of decided by the caterer there, because she catered the Wiseman on Wednesdays at noon and the Rotary on Thursdays at noon. And so we picked Wednesday evening as the ideal, so we wouldn't be getting leftovers from Thursday. We were in the middle of the group, so we paid the handsome sum of $2 per dinner.
Wow.
And
that included dessert?
Oh yes, and coffee.
Now Ed, you've described the origins of the club, the Moorestown Lions Club. You know, one of the things I'm curious about to know is, you know, what was it like back then? What were the people like? What were the meetings like? Maybe you could talk about your first fundraiser and just kind of give us a feeling. I know it was only about 3 or 4 years after the end of World War II. I'm just curious of what the atmosphere was like.
Well, it was an interesting time because most of the people who came into the club in the early years had not belonged to any service organization. It was a new experience for us. We were sponsored by the Maple Shade Lions Club, and their position was to help us get going and make sure we didn't stumble along the way. It worked out very, very well because as I mentioned, the project of Memorial Field came up very early on, which gave us a real incentive to get going as a Lions Club. The meetings were well attended. It started out with the usual opening that we have, and we sang, and we had a piano player that we paid a couple of dollars a meeting to come in and liven up the thing. We had guest speakers, and it was very easy in those days to get guest speakers because there was so much to be told about things that had happened in the previous years through the war. It went very quickly into other projects, and I'll mention some of those to you as we go along. But
how about just your first to start?
Well, the first big project was the Memorial Field situation, which took us about a year. And then from there, we went into a lot of varied projects.
Now, do you have any idea of how much money you raised the first year?
We raised $15,000. It was done by cake sales. It was chancing off an automobile. That was an interesting project because we bought the car for $1,600. The car was delivered to us about 6 weeks before the chance off was to be held, and the night before the drawing we didn't have enough funds to pay for the car. As a result, everybody was a little shaky. The following afternoon, when we held the drawing to award the car, we had made over $4,000. Incidentally, the tickets were 25 cents each. Sold a book of tickets for $3. So you can imagine the number of tickets we had to pull apart on the day of the drawing.
I'm just trying to imagine what $15,000 would be in today's dollars. It sounds like a heck of a fundraiser for your first year.
It was an interesting one too, because it was so new to all of us really, that we were asking people to do things that we had never asked people to do before, to donate, to chip in, donate cakes that we could sell, to buy cakes that we had made, and it was a fun time.
Well, now of course the club would evolve, and people would drop out, new members would come along. How did the club evolve, let's say through the 50s and the 60s? How did it change? What was the, obviously different times, different, the town was changing. Can you reflect on those particular decades?
I think probably what happened is that after the initial grouping of the people, we were not, I don't want to use the words more selective, but we had more to offer to tell the people what we were interested in doing and trying to do. And it was a time when we were against the Rotary with large numbers of members, and Wise Men with large numbers of members. Still they got the luncheon group, and we were working with the people who were not available for those meetings. So it was restricted us to some extent, but I think it was a good time for us to get we built up in 1952 to 72 members, and that was our top enrollment in the organization since that inception in '48.
How about the 70s and 80s and 90s? Any stark contrast to the first 30 years or so, or first 20 years, I should say?
Well, I think it was, people reflected more. We aged, of course, matured in thinking and experiencing more the needs of others, and we got involved in the blind camps and going to, for instance, the Jamesburg Training School for the boys, and participating with the kids there that were having difficulty. It was a time when we all were learning and appreciating more what Lions could do for those people.
Great. Now, is there a particular era that you feel most nostalgia for?
Well, it probably would have to go back to the early 50s, because that was, things happened then that were like beyond belief today. That we had, I might have told this incident before, we had one of our members who was a real character, did all kinds of crazy things that got us into some difficulties, and one of them was having a train back into the Moorestown station at Chester Avenue to pick up 700 people to take them to the New York World's Fair. And we learned of it when we found out he had signed up with the railroad to pay for 750 tickets, and they were, I've forgotten, I think $7 a ticket, and we were like in awe, how are we ever going to do this? Well, we wound up, they did take one car off, I think, at the tracks that morning, but we had 700 people down at the Chester Avenue station, and off we went to New York.
Now, that station no longer exists, correct?
No, they're all gone. There were 4 stations in Moorestown at the time. They're all gone now. There's no residential pickups in the town at all. We get freight.
All right, well, I'm going to ask you this question. I know you're not going to be able to answer it entirely, but can you name all the members that you've brought in or indirectly have brought in?
Probably
big
most
family
of them.
tree, right?
Most of them, not all of them. It was a little difficult to remember all of them because it was going rather rapidly.
How about in the current club?
In the current club, well, I can take credit for Joe Pearl and Nick de Blasio. Beyond that, I'm not sure in the current group. I think they're the only ones that are left out of we have Miles Carroll and we have Jeanette Habina. I sponsored those members.
That's true. Well, I'll tell you what, let's move on to a kind of a little nostalgia, if you will. I'm curious, there's obviously we keep a list of the past presidents in our booklet. And, you know, it's funny that we see these names every day in that booklet, but we never really obviously talk about them. And most of us who've been in the club, let's say post 1985, 80, didn't know many of these gentlemen. But I just wanted to run through a few names of past presidents, and I'll name the year. And just maybe you could just say a word, maybe a sentence, maybe a thought comes to your mind, maybe a quick story, you know, just so we get a little connection with some of these people that were in the club in the past. And I want to start with the original president, Jim Conroy.
Jim Conroy was one of the most dynamic people I have ever known in my life. He knew everybody and everybody knew Jim. He had an infectious laugh, and one of those stories I heard over the years, there was a woman on vacation in London in a restaurant, and she's with a party, and she said, "I just heard somebody laugh that I know," and she wandered through the restaurant and finds Jim Conroy, 3,000 miles from home. The guy's laugh carried across the ocean, and she found him. He was dedicated. We teased him. We had great times there. There was a soda fountain in his store with booths where you could sit down and have lunch and whatnot. So a lot of Lions information was transmitted to people in that store.
How about Charlie Lott? That was
Charlie
54
Lott
to 55.
Charlie Lott was another piece of work. Charlie Lott's the one that arranged for the train to come into Moorestown. He did so many things that were today, I don't know if we would be able to get away with. We were at a convention in Atlantic City, the old Haddon Hall, and Charlie decided to drop a cherry bomb down the fire tower. And when the security people came and were knocking on the doors, I was rooming with him. He gets out of his clothes, he musses up his hair, opens the door, and the security guard says, "Sorry, sir, to have bothered you." And closed the door, and Charlie gets back in bed. I said, "We're going to get thrown out of this hotel." He waits 15 minutes and goes and throws another cherry bomb down the stairwell.
How about Jim Thomason, 57 to 58?
Jim Thomason was a salesperson with Haddon House Foods. He introduced the club to chocolate-covered ants, bees, all kinds of bugs, and we all got a chance to sample those through the courtesy of Haddon House. He worked for the United States Post Office, and later moved from Moorestown to Cherry Hill, and brought in another very interesting man who became our president also, Stan Smith.
Stan Smith. And now Bill Dietrich was the first two-term president, is that correct?
He was, yeah.
58 to 60. What about Bill?
Bill was lived on Lois Lane off of Route 38. He worked for a lumber company, a millwork company. Super nice guy. He and his wife Peg were very, very much involved in the club, and he was a leveling type guy. Nothing excited Bill, but we got a lot of things done under his administrations.
Obviously, these two gentlemen you brought in the club, Nick de Blasio, Joe Perla.
Well, yeah, they got involved early on.
Hopefully they'll be watching this.
Very early on, because the one project we were involved with at that time, and we did it 2 or 3 years in a row, was to have speedboat races on Strawbridge Lake. It was probably one of the most voluminous undertakings you could imagine. Just to give you a quick rundown, we fenced in what was then Strawbridge Lake. There were no houses along Haynes Drive. From Pleasant Valley to Kings Highway, we had snow fence that the county provided that we put up so that we could have a gate to charge entrance. We had to build docks, we had to provide toilet facilities, we had to have food stands built, and so we recruited all kinds of people. Joe and Nick were two of those that did that, and brought in a couple of our other members by reason of doing that project.
Joe de Blasio, obviously Nick's brother.
Nick's brother, yeah. Well, Joe was active in the club in so many ways, but he was one of the originators of our Healthy Eye situation that we do every year, the 2020 membership thing. And he was one of the things I remember. I took off on a vacation for Greece in 1994, and left Joe with a little bit of a project helping the only two gal members at that time with a pumpkin and cornstalk sale. And it was a pouring rainy day when they had to deliver hundreds and hundreds of pumpkins and cornstalks over the commerce banks all over South Jersey. while I was enjoying my flight to Europe, he was out getting soaking wet. But he was a good sport.
This one obviously is sentimental to one of our current members, Joe Dennelsbeck.
Yeah, Joe
Annie's
was
father.
Joe was Annie's dad, of course, and Joe was
82 to 83.
he was probably one of the most outspoken guys we had. Everybody knew exactly where Joe stood, and Joe didn't pull any punches. He was a real estate salesperson. He was a great golfer. He was a great host, and he and his wife had many Lions Club functions at their home.
And of course, his daughter Annie, who became president 2003, 2005.
Exactly.
I know that Annie's very special to you.
And Annie's now raising a son that she's going to make sure becomes a Lion, so that she'll have the only third generation club president.
I'm just going to go through 6 quick names, 6, 7 names, just one word answers, maybe 2 word, one sentence, okay, and then we're going to move on. Burton Hauser.
Bert Hauser was the transfer member who was responsible for chartering our club. Bert couldn't remember a day or a time, and someone had to stand beside him and make corrections.
That's great. Ed McGuire.
Ed McGuire was an electrical engineer, provided the first Christmas lighting on Main Street by reason of building wooden wreaths and gathering up evergreens that had blown down in a windstorm and tacking them on with wire and putting lights on them, and we hung them and tied them into public service wiring without them knowing it.
Jim Mertz.
Jim Mertz was the son of Robert Mertz. Robert Mertz was a transfer member from Barrington. Jim worked with his dad. Jim had an interesting episode. He one board meeting walked out of the meeting in a rage, and he walked out the door and slammed the door, and we happened to be in Seymour Herlick's house, and he says he'll be back in a minute, he's in a closet.
How long did it take him to figure out he's in the closet?
He was there about 5 minutes, and then slowly walked out and left the house.
And did he ever come back to the club?
Oh yes.
Okay. Scott Ellis, who I know myself.
Right. Scott Ellis was one of the big guys at the club, in stature. Scott was a good worker. He provided his mountain retreat to the Lions, and over the years, and some of the Lions still go to his mountain retreat up in Chokinut, Pennsylvania. Scott was a great guy, and is a great guy.
Now, I asked you about some of the past presidents, who are the prominent names, obviously, they're always in that book. Are there a couple of people, individuals that, let's say, weren't president that we may not know of, that you think fondly of through the years?
Oh, there were many. There were so many things done by so many different people.
Was there one or two in particular that touched you, perhaps, or?
Let me give credit to Karen Milligan, who stepped in as the first woman in our club. And that was a tough position to be in, because throughout the whole Lions International organization, women had not been accepted into Lions. And so she was a leader in our group, and I think she has done a super job with her membership ever since. We had a brother and sister in the club. Ross Albert is still a member. His sister Lisette was a member and a president. Ross was also a president. They also were unique in that they both came with great ideas for the club, and were very successful in working them out.
You know, being a father of 3 daughters myself, this question means a lot to me, and I'm just going to go to it. It's actually farther down on my list, but since we're talking about it, how has the inclusion of women into the club impressed you, or what has it meant to you?
I think it's been important to us, and I think all service clubs are finding that it's necessary to do this. If you've read some of the articles in our Lions magazines, they tell you that some of the new clubs forming are about 50% made up of women, and they're diligent workers, and they're well versed in what's happening with the the projects we were involved in, and I think it's been a great move for the club.
Good. These next couple questions are a little bit boring for the audience probably, but I think it's important for the next generation of board members. So I'm going to go ahead with, when did you become treasurer, number one?
I don't really know. I know that it's almost 60 years I've been in the club. I think I've been the treasurer probably maybe 45 or even 50 of those years.
Is it safe to say you like it?
Yeah, I enjoy it.
You like handling the money?
Oh, yes, yes. That's how I became wealthy, you know, through the last donations.
Would you mind describing some of the duties of the treasurer so that, obviously what's involved with, it involves a lot more than just cutting checks, doesn't it?
Right. Well, we're responsible to our state organization for dues. We're responsible to our international organization for dues. All of the funds that we receive are put into a designated account. For the benefit of those who don't know, our dues go strictly into our administrative account, which covers all of the costs of running the club, postage, stationery, any printing that we do, any equipment that we buy and own comes out of that money, our dues. And then our welfare fund is the proceeds of every project we do. We do not take any funds out of that fund for anything other than to give away, which we do at the end of each fiscal year. We pretty much deplete what we call the welfare fund. And then we have a convention fund, which is made up of our fines and our 50/50 at the meetings. And we have another account now that we operate, which is called the Interact Committee, and that's a fund that you, John, are very involved with, and helping some blind people get to do activities that they would not otherwise have an opportunity to do. And then finally we have our parade account. Our parade account is not really money that belongs to the Lions Club. It's money donated by the business people and professional people in the town. It's kept separate from all of our other funds, and it's used to promote the holiday parade each year in December. And we've been doing that probably now for 40-some years.
Ed, as treasurer, we are in an age of computers. You're probably the only one I know that doesn't have one. How do you keep things organized? Where do you keep the money?
Well, our funds currently are kept in Liberty Bell Bank. We have a savings account and a checking account there. I keep a paper record of everything, every transaction that comes in, and give monthly reports to the board as to the balance of the accounts. Always available to anybody who wants to see are the checkbooks and whatever else we have. So it's not a difficult situation to take care of.
Are there special interactions that you have directly with Lions International? Things besides the dues? Is there anything else that you need to?
Not really. They have now put everything, of course, on computers, and Phil, our secretary, is responsible to report changes in membership and activities and whatnot. So most of my interaction with International is to keep up with the membership list, the dues, and questioned if we have any concerning things that we need information on, such as insurance coverage and things of that nature.
Now, for the benefit of the future treasurer, someday you will probably give up that position. Probably not for another 20 or 30 years, but just in case, are there any special subtleties or special tips or hints you would give to the next treasurer?
Patience. I guess patience would be the word. Trying to get the members to understand that when they get a dues bill, that the dues are due. Not at their discretion, but it should be at my discretion. Pay their dues when they're due. That's it.
All right, thank you for that. Let me go into a few quick questions actually, and I'm going to run through a bunch of these right now. What exactly is a Melvin Jones? When we hear the expression, you're eligible for a Melvin Jones, what does that mean?
Well, they were trying to find a way to boost funds coming into the International Foundation Fund. The LCIF is a fund that is used for disasters throughout the world. Katrina, for instance, the floods of Katrina was one. Anytime there's hurricanes and monsoons, anywhere, wherever in the world that there are lions and they need to raise money quickly, they go to LCIF. LCIF decided on a program where if a club donates $1,000 into LCIF, they can name a member for a Melvin Jones Fellowship. And the idea was to get as many lions into the fellowship fund, the grouping, so that the funds into the fund itself would build rapidly, and they did very well with it. They're in the several hundred thousand members who have received that award, and it's simply based on the club's ability to put $1,000 into LCIF.
Now, the convention, what is the purpose of the conventions, and why do we send people to the conventions?
Well, we have two conventions that we're concerned with. Every state has its own convention, and then there is an international convention. Each of these are annual fairs. In New Jersey, we have 5 districts, so it's the first time during the course of the year that all 5 districts are represented at a meeting or meetings, and that's the state convention. All types of things are discussed there that are relevant to the clubs in the state. The international convention, of course, is what it says it is. It is a meeting of club members from all over the world, and to attend one of those is mind-boggling, to see hundreds of thousands of people come together from all different cultures around the world and participate in meetings and ideas, and to witness a Lions International convention parade is something else. It's a 5 to 6 hour parade, and again, you're seeing people from all over the world, most of them in native costumes, and it's just a great activity, and hopefully, most of our members at some point in time will get a chance to attend one.
Now, there's clearly a hierarchy in the international line, so can you just briefly go through the progressions from the club level up to the
out of the club level, of course, we have zone chairman and we have regional chairman, and then we go to district governors, and there's one of those for each of the 5 districts in our state. There's one for every district in the whole international organization. As far as going from district governor on up, to be elected to get on the international board, you have to be elected to be a director, you have to be elected to a 3rd vice president, 2nd vice president, 1st vice president. The progression seems to work for international pretty well. I have to say that probably there are not very many people who aspire to becoming the international president who do not have the financial wherewithal to do that, because they must give up all activity for 1 year. They get an expense account which covers probably less than 50% of what they need for that year, but there is no other compensation, and so they walk away from their businesses or professions and give their time to visit clubs all over the world.
Now, obviously, the club hierarchy is we have president, and we have vice presidents and directors and committee heads. Actually, I had a personal question for you. Do you have a favorite committee?
Probably the fundraising is the most interesting. I think of anything we do, it's always interesting to see how these projects work out. And I've been over the years involved in just about all of them. I still am very active, as you know, with the Healthy Eye Club in October. That raises for us approximately $2,500 a year toward our welfare benefits. So that's a kind of a highlight for me.
Okay, these are a couple of quick opinion questions. One is, what do you think makes one club thrive over another? Because clearly, I think the Moorestown Club seems to be growing, thriving, and we see other clubs in the state dying off.
Well, there's several things. I think the meetings have to be interesting. They have to be not totally structured to the point where they're boring. I think over the years we have done both. We have had activity that was so...
I was hearing something. I was hearing something bang.
Okay, I was going to ask you, just some brief questions here, kind of run through these. What do you think makes one club thrive over another? I mean, we see Moorestown, I think we're thriving, we're growing, we're active. You see other clubs in the state, you know, dying off or very inactive, having problems. What do you think is the difference?
I think the clubs have to be kept more on a social level than a business level to keep people interested today. Meetings not too long but interesting, speakers where possible should be limited, and I think most of it has to do with the interaction that, for instance, that you know, in the next couple of weeks we're going to have our second meeting at Whistler's, where we have just a social night with our members and any guests that they care to bring, and that type of thing I think keeps people interested in wanting to come back for more.
In that vein, what do you think has happened to the service club in general in this country?
Well,
clearly we see it thriving in other countries. Japan, for example, has a tremendous Lions presence.
Unfortunately, I've never been to Japan, but I can only imagine that with the bulk of the people in that country in such a small area, that life and the way they live tends to be a little bit boring, and the club is an outlet for them. With here in the United States, for instance, I think we have most families, young families, there's two working in the family, so that it's very difficult for perhaps one to give up time to be a member of a service club. The amount of activities that are available, for instance, to people in a town like Moorestown is unbelievable. So that the selection has to be careful for them for the amount of time they have to donate. Some clubs have just gone out of existence because of age and no attempt to replace members. We've been very fortunate, gotten young, active members, and hopefully we'll continue to do that.
Well, in that same light, is there something that is challenging for the Moorestown Club that you see developing, or that we're currently being tested with right now that we will have to overcome?
Not really. I think the club has in itself, for instance, we've watched our golf outing grow in its magnitude and the amount of money we can raise in a year. The parade has always been an interesting project and people gotten involved in. I think we have a number of things now. We have our new trailer, which was so generously donated by Liberty Bell Bank, that we can use for functions to sell our hot dogs and soda and participate in other activities. I think all this has made it an interesting club to belong to.
Well, you're as good a person to discuss this as anyone. I mean, everyone in the club probably has to face this issue. How have you handled juggling your family life, your work, your social life, and the Lions? Because we all know of people that have had difficulty doing that, and it's not easy to do.
Well, fortunately, my family, Elaine, the kids have always been involved in Lions from day one. Everybody has participated, so it's when I have something to do for the Lions, I get complete cooperation from everyone in the family to continue to do it. I think that's kind of the important thing, that when you come into the Lions Club, that you know you're going to be asked to give up some of your free time. If the family understands that, and if they're able to participate and do participate, it makes it even more interesting for the member.
How important has it been to have a supportive spouse? Because obviously I think that's important too.
Very, very much so. I don't think you're successful without it. It's got to happen.
Okay, I have a couple of quick questions that are more on a personal basis for you. The first is, as a Lion, now, not in your personal life, but as a Lion, what would you say perhaps your biggest disappointment is, or has been?
Probably seeing the membership go down, the numbers decrease in rank rather than increase as you might hope it would go. It's an uncontrollable situation. You can't predict when a member comes in how long they're going to stay, if they're going to stay on forever and a day, or if they're going to be in and out as a number of members have been. I think that for any group, that's a disappointment to see that happen. You hope that when they come in, they're there to stay.
How about greatest achievement? As a club or even you as a Lion?
Well, I think for the club, it's to point to the success, for instance, of our golf outing, our parade activity. The thing, parade 47 years, golf outing 17, 18 years. That many groups try these things and they last 1 or 2 years and they disappear. We've gone through many different functions that we no longer even think about. But when we weigh out for the amount of time we put in, where are we going to get the most for our time, the biggest buck for our time, and that's what we're interested in doing and are doing.
I had a discussion the other night with another Lion who asked me to ask you a question. And I thought it was a very interesting question because I think it would shed some light as to what kind of person you are. And this is the question. You were some time back nominated for Citizen of the Year, and you chose to turn it down. That's my understanding. I'm just curious as to why you did that.
Well, I've never been fond of the manner in which the Citizen of the Year has been chosen. There are people in this town and surrounding towns that every day of their life they put themselves second to helping somebody else. They take care of somebody else's needs first. It's a superficial thing. I don't look for that type of thing, never have. I would rather be the worker than the front man. I just had no desire, and I expressed that as soon as they called me and told me, and I know it was a disappointment to some members of our club, but it was not something that I was personally interested in, and I would not be. It was just a personal thing.
Okay, let's move on. Little reminiscing again. Funniest story. Or funniest episode, as far as the Lions go.
There have been quite a few of them. From a visual standpoint, I would have to think that the one, again, involves Charlie Lott. We're in the Haddon Hall in Atlantic City at a convention. The hospitality rooms were down both sides of this major hallway. And as we walked down the hall past one of the convention rooms, there's food service guys pushing a cart with all kinds of urns and cookies and crackers and stuff on it. And Charlie Lott happens to be walking behind him stride for stride. And as the guy gets to the doors of the room, he parks the cart, goes over to open the double doors of the room. Charlie Lott pushes the handle, the cart goes out the end of the hall, which opened onto the balcony of the hotel overlooking the boardwalk. And the guy turns around and looks for his cart, it's gone. Charlie's out there tossing crackers and cookies over the rail to people who were fighting to catch him down on the boardwalk. And in those days, these were particularly women very well dressed in furs and hats and coats and whatever. And it was a sight to behold. It was a sight to behold.
Fundraisers. We've all heard about the successful ones, the one that, you know, the first one you did with the car and the raffling, and of course the golf outing has been a tremendous success over the years. How about a bomb? How about something we've tried that really bombed?
A recent one was a coffee sale. We invested $250 to buy coffee. We're going to sell it for $8 a half pound. We gave the coffee away. That was a bomb. A real bomb.
How about a member that's come into the club that surprised you? Perhaps somebody you thought initially, you know, I don't know, they might be a weak member, and then they really emerged. Is there someone that comes to mind? Any maybe a couple?
Well,
from the past or recent past?
One who sticks out in my mind, and I'm very fond of the guy, and that's Fred Adams. Fred was, and is, you know, he's talks a good game, he's not going to do something, and he's doing something all the time. He was the one who got me involved in the project, not as a Lions project, but that we helped the young guy out in Lumberton after the flood to rebuild his house. Fred had been going out there night after night after night, and finally I said to him, what are you doing out there? And he said, well, come out and see. He was really one of the leaders in getting that guy's house rebuilt. We've had others who, in the past, who have come in and been slow starters, but then you see how they continue. Look at Joe Pearl, look at Nick DeBlancy. These guys, when they're able to, are there at every single project that goes on. No question about it. And I admire that in them.
Do you have a most memorable moment as a Lion? Is there one moment in all the last 50+ years that sticks
Yeah,
out?
I think one that sticks out. We in the early days of the Citizen of the Year, we met in the community house. In those days, the Citizen of the Year was not announced until the night of the dinner, and they stood at the dais and started to say, well, this person was born in such and such a place, they went to such and such a school, and you had to look around the room and see whose face was starting to get redder and redder because they could recognize it may be them. And they had the family hidden behind doors so they didn't see them. But one night we had a speaker at that meeting, and his topic was coal, the coal industry. And his speech was 2 hours and 15 minutes long, and I was sitting at the head table, had no option to get up and leave, and I'm sitting there watching all these people pouring out of the back doors of the gymnasium in the community house, and finally, when he finally decided he was finished, there were about 10 people left in the room. It was very embarrassing and very boring.
Sounds like a good time.
Oh, fun time, fun time.
I'm just gonna read something that's in the credo of our book, and then I'm gonna have my final question for you. Just very briefly. This is the Lions Club objectives: to create and foster a spirit of understanding among the peoples of the world, to promote the principles of good government and good citizenship, to take an active interest in civic, cultural, social, and moral welfare of the community, to unite the clubs in the bonds of friendship, good fellowship, and mutual understanding, to provide a forum for the open discussion of all matters of public interest, provided, however, that partisan politics and sectarian religion shall not be debated by club members, to encourage service-minded people to serve their community without personal financial reward, and to encourage efficiency and promote high ethical standards in commerce, industry, professions, public works, and private endeavors. My question to you, Ed, is, reading that, is there one part of that credo that resonates with you the most?
Well, I think it was something that's been very carefully put together. I think it defines Lions' objectives and how we hope all of our Lions react. I think it brings an understanding where people can get together and maybe not agree with everything that's said or done by that person, but accept it for their belief. I think it's a good philosophy for life for anybody.
And just to add to that, what meaning does the Lions experience have for you in general? How could you sum it up?
Well, it's been such a major part of my life for the past 60 years. I don't know what I would have filled my time in with had I not been doing the things I do with Lions and continue to try to do with Lions. It's been a major part of my life, and one that I've thoroughly agreed, and I incidentally appreciate the life membership that was given to me by Lions International in 1979, and I don't think when they give that, they're hopeful that you don't last too long because you're duty free as far as dues are concerned.
They had no idea 30 more years, right?
They didn't know it was going to hang in there that long.
Ed, I want to thank you. It's been a pleasure.
John,
And
thank you.
I want to thank Ed, and I want to thank Rudy Jones for helping this process get off the ground. And I want to thank you, to all the members of the Lions, for doing what you do. Thank you.